Joining us now is Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and President of the Washington Strategy Group. Joel, really glad to have you on this morning, especially on this topic. It's one that so many are following right now. Can you just break down to us at the moment, in terms of your understanding, what does higher alert exactly mean here?
It's great to be with you, Alicia. And the higher alert means that right now the administration, the White House, has decided that Vladimir Putin is potentially going to invade Ukraine. And the White House wants to ensure that our allies, NATO allies in particular, are reassured that we have their back. So this new status for our troops means that the eastern flank of NATO, these countries will receive additional support from the American military. They will be comforted with that knowledge, understanding that the United States is willing to back them. And that also supports our diplomatic activities, meaning that it keeps them in the fold. It keeps Europe unified. It sends a signal to Europe that Russian threats are not going to be taken lightly by the United States.
So high alert essentially here, meaning get ready. You could be deployed at any moment, be prepared to do so. How likely, though, is actual deployment here? And to what degree would U.S. troops actually be involved?
Well, Lisa, we've seen continued degradation of the situation over the past month. We have seen for the past month continuing alerts from Russia, a higher level of threat. We have seen our allies in the region continuing to be concerned about what that means for their security. And so it's quite possible that over the next week, we'll see additional ramping up and we could see our troops deployed further. President Biden has said that he will not place American troops into a military conflict in Ukraine, but that doesn't mean that our troops are going to be sitting on the sidelines and watching entirely. There is military support going into Ukraine. $200 million since that was approved in December is now being sent, lethal and non-lethal support. So it's getting tense. And in my discussions with the administration, it's clear that they see this sliding in the wrong direction.
And you kind of touched on some of this here, but President Biden video conference with the European leaders yesterday to discuss kind of Russia's military buildup on the Ukrainian border. What do we know about the outcome of that meeting?
Well, what we know from the public messaging is that the president said we are all unified, and clearly the pressure is on internally to ensure that all the European allies maintain the strong diplomatic program that the administration is leading, and that it also get guarantees from the United States regarding sanctions. So this means that with the sanctions being a leverage tool for pressure against Putin, they can be deployed if the Europeans and our allies are fully in sync with that. And that will be painful for some of their countries. Germany, as an example, with Nord Stream 2. If it cuts Nord Stream 2 because Russia invades Ukraine, it's going to need to have some backfill. Where will it get its gas supplies? How will it deal with the economic fallout? So much of those discussions are as well about ensuring that these relationships stay firm and that this unity is the greatest threat, quite frankly, to Vladimir Putin. It's what he's trying to undermine.
How does this move in terms of being on high alert, certainly having this conference with the European leaders, signal a shift in the Biden administration, which some could say up until recently really restrained on a stance of kind of avoiding this conflict out of fear of provoking Russia?
The Biden team is not looking for a war. The United States is not looking for a war. But what we're watching is a country in Russia, a dictatorship, amassing 100,000 troops along the border of a democratic ally, Ukraine. And so the Biden team has tried to carefully calibrate its responses to not provoke a war, but to send a firm message, a deterrence message that those types of troop massings, that potential threat, that potential invasion is unacceptable. And so the Biden team has been pulling this package together and really does not want to see Russia go in. Nobody wants to see Russia go in. The Ukrainian people are getting ready potentially, and it would be a very horrible fight. It frankly would cost a significant loss of life. We've seen nearly 10,000 Ukrainians killed in eastern Ukraine since the 2014 invasion by Russia. So it's a very bloody situation there. And so for the Biden team, they're trying to make it very clear it will get worse for you, Russia and Vladimir Putin, if you invade. And diplomacy and pulling back from this brink is crucial, but they're trying to make sure the choices are sharp for Vladimir Putin, that this is a serious line that he cannot cross.
I've only got about 20 seconds here, but any insight in terms of what happens next?
Well, what's going to happen next is we're going to continue to see American support for our allies. We're going to continue to see public explanation of what the sanctions will be, as well as what kinds of military assistance that we're providing to our allies over the next several days to make it publicly clear to Russia that there is a cost associated with these actions.
Hopefully that clarity somehow leads to de-escalation here. Really appreciate your insight. Joa Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and President of the Washington Strategy Group.